This is unVEIL, Real Cases, AI Analysis, investigating the connections others overlook. Are you seeing what we are seeing? Every investigation needs more investigators. Join the unVEIL investigation team and help us uncover what the record is trying to hide. Analysis of the base ring jug, a common export vessel, shows it was modeled on an inverted poppy head. The design served as a recognizable label, telling merchants exactly what the vessel contained before they ever opened it. Despite this rigid organization and control over a high-value commodity, the entire civilization suffered a total, unexplained collapse around 1450 BC. In ancient Greece, the monopoly shifted from trade to revelation. For nearly 2,000 years, initiates traveled to this sanctuary at Elusis to consume a substance called the kykeon. Participation was a mark of elite status. The ritual's initiates included the most influential minds of the ancient world, from Plato and Aristotle to Sophocles. This diagram shows the chemical connection between the kykeon and modern synthetics. The ritual drink was likely brewed from barley infected with ergot, a fungus containing ergotamine, which is a direct natural precursor to LSD. The experience resulted in a state known as ego dissolution. The Roman statesman Cicero claimed his initiation was the mechanism that taught him how to die with hope rather than fear. This institution of elite pharmacological initiation lasted until 392 AD, when the Emperor Theodosius ordered the sanctuary demolished. The state had adopted a new religious authority, and it no longer permitted a rival path to transcendence. In South America, the Inca Empire demonstrated how a substance could be used as a strategic resource. They maintained a strict state monopoly on coca, issuing it to workers as a mandatory ration to fuel labor at high altitudes. Following the conquest of 1532, the Spanish initially banned the leaf, with the church declaring it a demonic tool used to sustain pagan rituals. This is Cerro Rico in Potosí. The Spanish ban collapsed when they realized these silver mines, the financial engine of their global empire, could not produce without a workforce fueled by coca. These coins represent the wealth extracted from Potosí. By 1569, the Spanish crown reversed its moral objection and instituted a 10% tax on coca production, directly financing their European wars through the substance they once prohibited. It is a recurring pattern of imperial pragmatism. Authorities will condemn a substance as a moral threat, then seize the infrastructure to use that same substance as an economic weapon. On the Eurasian steppe, the Scythian culture utilized a different mechanism of transformation. The historian Herodotus recorded that the Scythians would inhale the vapors of cannabis and opium inside enclosed felt tents, reporting that the ritual caused the participants to howl with pleasure. These accounts were dismissed as exaggeration for centuries. Then, in 2013, archaeologists in the Caucasus Mountains recovered solid gold vessels containing the exact chemical residues described in the ancient text. For the Scythian shamans, the Anerai, this was not recreational. The ritual induced a shift where they adopted feminine mannerisms and served as mediators between the divine and human worlds. The state was a vessel for communication ordinary consciousness could not access. The Minoans, the Greeks, the Inca, the Scythians, each of these powers integrated altered states of consciousness into the foundation of their spiritual and political authority. This institutional monopoly suggests a blueprint that has persisted across millennia, a design that begins with the sacred and ends with the weaponization of the human mind. Civilizations are built on chemistry. Early powers organized their social structures around sacred psychoactive substances, leaving behind a map of how these materials were understood. Tracking what happens when that knowledge is lost or weaponized explains why these empires eventually fell. 3,500 years ago, the priests of the ancient Indian subcontinent composed 114 hymns dedicated to a golden drink called soma. The Rig Veda describes it with clinical consistency, a substance pressed from a mountain plant, never brewed or fermented, that supposedly eliminated fear while producing divine visions. The hymns describe drinking the urine of the priests who had already consumed the soma. The psychoactive compounds in the Amanita muscaria mushroom pass through the human body intact, remaining active when excreted. Competing evidence suggests a more complex formula. Excavations at Goner Tepe in modern Turkmenistan uncovered ritual vessels containing measurable residues of ephedra, cannabis, and poppy together in a single container. The original soma may have been a synergistic blend of all three. As Vedic culture migrated away from these mountain ecologies, the physical recipe disappeared. The priests preserved the hymns and the sacred fire, but the pharmacological identity was lost, fully mythologized into a moon god. In Southeast Asia, humans discovered a different kind of chemical bond. For 9,000 years, communities have combined betel leaf, areca nut, and slaked lime to produce a mild, sociable stimulant. It became a foundational protocol of political exchange, sealing treaties and marriages for multiple empires. Expanding states eventually recognized this sacred habit as an economic asset. Between the 13th and 15th centuries, the Majapahit Empire began listing betel gardens in their tax records alongside other state monopolies. This chart shows the modern scale of that institutionalization. With 600 million current users, betel is the fourth most widely consumed psychoactive substance on Earth. In 2004, the World Health Organization linked it directly to epidemic rates of oral and esophageal cancer. When a state bureaucratizes a sacred habit for revenue, it strips away the cultural guardrails, transforming a social protocol into a chronic public health fatality. In the high desert of northwestern New Mexico, the ancestral Puebloanans built Chaco Canyon. By 850 AD, this was a ceremonial and administrative hub that coordinated labor and tribute from across the region. The hearts of these rituals were fueled by Datura wrightii. This plant contains tropane alkaloids that produce absolute delirium, a state where the user cannot distinguish internal visions from physical reality. A specialized priestly class controlled the preparation and administration of the dose. Over time, they tightened their monopoly on the Datura experience, concentrating ritual authority and pharmacological knowledge in fewer and fewer hands. Following a 50-year drought, the system suffered a violent end. Excavations reveal mass burials, evidence of perimortem processing, and a built environment showing increasing fortification before the great houses were finally abandoned. Whether the monopolized drug was the underlying cause of the collapse or the final weapon of control, the Chacoan system failed to survive the drought. The communities that followed never rebuilt the great houses, but they kept the Datura ritual, this time decentralized and removed from elite control. Societies lacking structural knowledge of their pharmacology often misinterpret systemic poisoning. In medieval Europe, a plague of holy fire caused limbs to blacken and fall off, while others reported visions and states of religious terror. The cause was ergot, a fungal parasite that infects rye and produces alkaloids similar to LSD. Cold, wet summers repeatedly spiked the medieval grain supply with these compounds, triggering mass pharmacological events that were invisible to the victims. Reported symptoms, seizures, visions, and hallucinations, matched the claim of convulsive ergotism. Similar outbreaks fueled the Strasbourg dancing plague of 1518. This map shows Salem village in 1692. The geography of the accusations aligns perfectly with a rye-growing area that experienced a cold, wet summer in 1691. Skeptics and residents who remained unaffected drew their grain from different fields. Without an institutional understanding of ergotism, the community misinterpreted agricultural contamination as a demonic attack, turning the chemical effects of their own bread into a weapon against their neighbors. In the 19th century, the British Empire industrialized the weaponization of addiction. They cultivated a mass market for opium in China, growing the drug in India and smuggling it across the border by the ton. British traders moved 1,400 tons of opium a year into China, roughly 2.8 billion doses. Commissioner Lin Zexu wrote to Queen Victoria, pointing out the hypocrisy of Britain prohibiting opium use at home while exporting it to poison a sovereign nation for profit. The resulting opium wars were fought strictly to protect this trade. Britain imposed treaties that ceded Hong Kong, opened new ports to commerce, and legalized the drug trade within China. Opium revenues eventually financed 20. This systematic use of an addictive substance to destroy a nation's capacity for resistance created a century of internal instability. That legacy remains a defining factor in global geopolitics and China's relationship with Western powers today. Every civilization in this investigation was working within a tradition that began long before recorded history. In southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe stands as a monument built around 9600 BC. The beer before bread hypothesis argues that early domesticated grains were cultivated for fermentation, not food. Agriculture may have been driven by the desire for beer rather than the need for staples. Chemical analysis of the massive limestone vessels at Göbekli Tepe shows the signature of fermented cereal. This matches the 13,000-year-old beer residue found at Rakefet Cave in Israel, predating the existence of settled farming. The pursuit of fermentation and communal altered states was likely the primary attractor that caused nomadic hunter-gatherers to settle and build permanent structures. The drive for altered consciousness stands as the foundational catalyst for civilization itself. It is the organizing premise that brought humans together to build the first cities and temples. The historical pattern is clear. Whenever a civilization takes a substance from a sacred ritual and transforms it into an economic monopoly, a bureaucratic tax, or a geopolitical weapon, it triggers its own violent unraveling. This 13,000-year cycle reflects a catastrophic collision between the human need to reach beyond ordinary consciousness and the instinct of imperial power to control that need. Every investigation leaves unanswered questions. That's where you come in. Share your perspective. Challenge our assumptions. Suggest the next investigation. Welcome to the unVEIL investigation team. We unveil so you see.